Good afternoon, Phillies and Gentle Colts, ladies and gentlemen. This is PMV Today host Skydash, and you've tuned in to PMV Today's Spotlight podcast. Tonight I'm going to be talking to a talented member of the PMV community, amassing over 6,000 subscribers recently and bringing very professional quality to everyone's YouTube feed. It's rainbowdashzx. Now, RDZX, that's an interesting yet somewhat ambiguous username. How do you explain how you came up with that?
I just have to craft from face value what I've gathered from the show. So I was like, let's take a character that I like, not even my favorite character at the time or now, but take a character that I like and then put ZX at the end since it's something I've used forever, and at that point I'll know it's available for sure. And yeah, with ZX it's very simple. I actually remembered recently why I've used it for so long. It's random. It's a brand of tire, like for cars, and I found ZX from Gran Turismo, which I used to play on the PlayStation. Really irrelevant to the context of this interview, but kind of cool that I finally remembered.
Well, yeah, that's a neat reference going back.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that explains that. That's pretty cool. What were, well, starting with beginning stories, how did you get into the MLP fandom?
Right. So in 2011, mid-2011, June, July, August, so about 4 years ago, the forum I was frequenting at the time, there showed up a thread. It was like, should I watch this show? And then in brackets, MLP. And I assumed I understood what the acronym stood for, because MLP is fairly popular, but I was kind of unsure at the time. And something like My Little Pony showing up on a forum would be very unexpected, and so I was a little bit surprised when I went in to find out that's exactly what it is. And one of the people posting the thread, who's actually one of my really good friends, was asking, should I watch the show, give it a chance, and whatnot. And it kind of took me by surprise that someone would be asking something like this. But then at the same time, I realized I've been seeing a lot of MLP image macros and videos and like Team Fortress 2 parodies and whatnot showing up on the internet. And before then, I didn't even know how it started, with 4chan and whatnot. I had no real understanding of it. It just showed up. And since it had managed to leak its way all the way to my little forum on my little corner of the internet, I thought, at that point, if it's that significant enough, I must have to give it a watch. And so I viewed the first 2 episodes, the season 1 opener, in August-ish of 2011, and thought it was okay. Nothing spectacular, nothing special. Well, then I revisited that thread in October and realized this has a larger following than I thought, and more people are getting into it, especially around the internet where the images and videos and whatnot were a lot more prevalent. I thought maybe I should give the show a second look. Because the season opener sums up, the design and how the characters act and the voice acting and animation, but it doesn't really expand the world too much. And I figured I probably should give this show a second look. So I watched the season 1 opener again, and then watched 4 episodes, and I think is the furthest I got. And at that point, I realized if I'm not going to get hooked to the show, I at least have to watch the first season, because at that point, the entire first season was done. So I could at least watch the first season and see if I like it. Yeah, and since then, I've kind of become hooked.
Well, that's cool. Let's move on. When you first discovered MLP, we discussed this before, but you said your family's reaction and your friends' reaction was pretty positive overall?
Yeah, I would say positive in the context of it not being negative. Because they didn't react in a bad way, but it was more like, it's just a show. So there's nothing really to talk about,
Right.
It's just a TV. It might not be designated for like my demographic either now, nor at the time when I watched it, and I was 13, 14 at the time when I first tried it. But it's just a show, and I think that's why the reaction wasn't so large as some people's are, where they, I'm coming out of the stable to my family and friends about watching this show.
Yeah.
I really never understood that, and I don't want to degrade anybody, I'm not attacking people, but it's a TV show, just like, Walking Dead, Orange is the New Black, Breaking Bad, Fringe, I just name shows left and right that people watch and have had followings. And it's no real different. Maybe the demographics targeted a little differently, but in the end, it's still just a TV show.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people need to realize more fully. and that's both
Right.
people who are in the fandom and people who criticize the fandom.
Mm-hmm.
So, expanding on that, how did you get into making PMVs when you got into the fandom? That's a strange thing to get into.
Yeah, for me, it wasn't as strange because I'd been doing video editing before, and while I didn't specifically jump into the fandom right going to video editing, I had experience working with videos and video editing and whatnot before, so it was
Right.
logically for me the first thing and the best thing to jump on. So after I, started watching the episodes, I wanted to start exploring the community a bit too, and see other people, connect with other people about the show. And I needed my sort of expressive outlet to put my custom, fan-made content out there. And I can't really draw, can't really make music. I could write a story, but I'm not much of a writer. Like, I don't have the desire to write. But video editing is something I've always done, as far back as 9, 10 years old. And it's something I still want to do, and so at the time it made sense, and it's what I went through with.
Well, that's cool.
And
Are you going to go through with any career opportunities with?
if I have the opportunity to make a career out of video editing and more of an umbrella term like content creation, that would definitely be something I do.
Okay, that's cool. So we didn't touch on this as much. What's your favorite character in MLP? Because we would assume that it's Rainbow Dash from your username.
Yeah, you would assume that, and I would have assumed that too if I wasn't me. But I don't exactly have a favorite because each of the characters pertain to a different trait, and while some could say it's a stereotype that they're pertaining to, like, each character represents one thing and one thing only. They're rather diverse characters, and so even though they have one persistent trait about them that sort of shapes their personalities, it isn't like inherently entirely who they are, and so each character has something different about them that's just different enough to make you like them for that reason. So maybe someone doesn't like one character because they're a certain way that they don't like, or someone doesn't like another character because of the way they're like, but it's really, they're diverse enough that you don't have to like them all, but you can't really dislike them all or have a favorite because they're all just different enough to make it difficult to pick a favorite. And I'm sure, people could say, oh, I have a favorite, I have a favorite, I have a favorite. Sure, you could have your favorites. But for me, it's difficult because they all have something I like about them.
Well, that's great. That's great that you recognize that everybody has something they have to bring to the table in MLP.
Right. Everybody but Spike. Remember that.
Yes, along with the Spike hate. Oh boy.
Yep. I had to get that in there. I'm not letting it slip.
Of course. Now, let's move on to the core questions of this interview. What do you want to bring to your audience with your channel and with your videos?
I've been waiting so long to answer this question. Not from you, but in general, because it's such a strong and powerful question. What I've been wanting to bring to my viewers and potential fans and whatever you want to call them, is when I started out, it was I want to listen to songs and, hey, look, this song would be cool using clips from the show. And, I mean, nothing's wrong with that. That's how a lot of people do their videos. But that's how I started out. And, hear a song and, oh, here's a scene or even an entire episode plot from the show that would go good with this. And that was sufficient when I first started out. But as I started to learn more and more about the tools I had access to for creation and the more music I listened to, the more I realized I can craft stories that I envision in my head, like ideas and visions and worlds and whatnot. In my head, I can begin to craft them and bring them out and present them to people for others to see the same ideas and visions that I get from listening to music. So when I first started out, it was, I want to create videos for people using music that fits the music. And now it's more like, I have ideas and visions for music. I want to present them to my fans with the medium of MLP. Like that bridges the gap between the idea and making it real.
Right.
At least for now it does.
Wow. So you want to bring that story and those
right.
basically pieces of art.
Yeah, ideas and thriving worlds and just these fantasies that I get from music. Bring that to my fans and viewers in the most professional way I can.
Wow, that's cool, man. That's cool. So, Out of all these fantasy and ideas that you bring in, what would you say your favorite video that you've made is?
Ah,
Or
that's
at
a
least the
tough
one that you've
question.
had the most fun making?
Right. I could play the easy way out here and say, working on collaborations was the most fun because you got to work with so many people. And I could pass it off as an answer and say move on to the next question, but I really want to give you a heartfelt answer here, and I'd have to say if I have to pick one video, it's difficult because I would have to say my PMV of Rebirth, but that ties into a four-part series. If anybody who recognizes my channel would see, it's a four-part fictional series that I made up, and that it spanned a little over 2 years, and it was probably the most fun project I did because I had so much time and I had so much to work with, and it allowed me to evolve my editing capabilities and further flesh out the idea I had for the story. So I would definitely say Rebirth, or using the latter, the Plight of Immortality was probably the most fun thing for me to work on.
Ah, okay. Why is that?
Like I said, because it allowed me to evolve over time, I got to use, like, with this, it was a very rare exception to what I'd just gone on about having ideas and fantasies for music. This is more, I want to write a fictional story and present it using MLP as the medium, the bridge between the idea and,
Right.
what people can see. But I want to craft a story that goes completely against what you see in the show, completely reusing the scenes to the point where you can't even recognize how they were originally. And it was a challenge, and it was really fun to do that because I had to find the right scenes, and I had to wait for season 4 to air before I had access to the right scenes to continue the story. So it was an evolving project, and I learned a lot, and I got to practice a lot, and I discovered a wide variety of music from it, from rock to orchestrated music, and then one of the videos, Take Me Away specifically, was a mixture of the two. So I had to really, it gave me a lot of opportunities to really try new things and see if I could complete this story and bring it from an idea in my head out in a complete story for people to watch.
Well, that's
And
awesome.
it was fun. I loved doing it. It was well received, and I couldn't be happier with it, I think.
All right. Well, so far your channel seems to be stuff like that, and it's fantastic. Do you have anywhere that you're planning to go with things? We've noticed in your newest video, Always, the PMV, you kind of let in a softer, more emotional view into the editing process.
hmm
Can you tell us where you plan to go with your videos?
Yeah, this would be a sort of bombshell to some. Others maybe not so much, depends on how much they know me. I can see myself evolving to the point where one day I might be driven away from MLP entirely as a tool for content creation, if it as a resource for me has been completely used up. Because as I evolve as a content creator, I find more and more that I am being constrained by the tools that I have access to. And so if the day arrives that, MLP is simply holding me back from really truly expressing these ideas I have, I might end up dropping them. But in the, short term, I don't plan to stop editing on my channel anytime soon, but in the short term, I'd say I want to have more diverse content. I want to be able to more clearly express my ideas, and I want to do more original stuff. I don't want to do what other people have done, and I don't want to do anything that it's a really niche genre of video. I don't want to do that. I want to do something that's my own style, my own creation, but it also appeals to a lot of people.
Right. Right. Okay. I feel that. Now, when you got into PMV making, were there any influences that you took from outside? Any other PMVers that you drew stuff from, or any other editors in general?
When I first started, the only influence I really had was music, which is how I started. Because when I first started making videos, I started my channel on November 30th, 2011, approximately a month and 2 weeks after I joined the fandom unofficially, started watching the first season. And it was only a little more than a month after I created my channel that I was able to put out my first video. So I wasn't too well versed in the community. I didn't know many, if any, editors. I didn't really have anybody to go to for inspiration or influence or get ideas, and so it first started out with just figuring out how to repurpose the scenes in the show using music. And as I adapted my style and began to learn more and evolve, I'd say a few of the key influences I had would be Mandarin Orange, who made The Stars Will Aid in Her Escape, and then I Am Korean, and I could name some of his stuff, but I could, there's the Fire Hive video that he did, and he did a repurposing of The Stars Will Aid in Her Escape, I believe, for a small project. But it was because he actually used at the time the same software that I was using, and so he was more easy to draw inspiration from, both from a creative front and from a utility front, where I could learn techniques from him. So I would say the two biggest influences would be Mandarin Orange and I Am Korean.
And they're very good influences.
Oh yes, they were very good. Although they don't really do much anymore.
No, I don't think so either. But do you mentioned the software you use? That's Adobe After Effects, correct?
Right. I used to, up until just April of this year, used exclusively Sony Vegas. All of the iterations up from 7, as I'd been using that since I was 9 years old, I believe. So I've had about 9 years of experience with using Sony Vegas. But recently, I found that I'm being constrained by it. It's not allowing me to expand as far out as I want to and really flesh out the ideas I have. So in April of this year, I actually began to rent the Adobe Creative Suite. So I have After Effects, I have Premiere, Photoshop, Flash, and whatnot. And right now my toolkit consists of Premiere and After Effects, but with the content I want to produce, I'll probably expand to using the entire suite. But if you need a straight answer, want to put it down on paper, I would say After Effects would be my software right now.
Yeah. I use After Effects as well, and it's been great. It's been great specifically for effects like you do in your videos. There's a lot of effects and ingenuity you can put into there. Mm-hmm. Is there any particular reason why you put so many effects, or is that just the way that it happens in your head and you want to express that?
Good question. I really like answering questions like these because there's so much to them. They're very loaded questions. At first, when I started out, I just, wanted to use music and put it to the show in appropriate ways and see how much I can do, see how flashy I can make the video, how interesting. And then it evolved from that to the point where it got to a few of my videos like Figure 8 and Delta, where I was experimenting with motion graphics and really creating content by hand rather than using scenes. And when it comes down to effects specifically, it sort of transitioned from trying to be as flashy and over the top as I can be to actually, like you said, help further express the idea that I had, for each individual video. Because you mentioned my video of Always, very simple transitions. And even a novice video editor could look at it and really see in the end what I did to make it. But it's all I really needed to do for a song like that, because the scenes really played out themselves and expressed the video. But then you could look at something else that I've made and see it very effects heavy, but the effects really tie into the music. And so it just depends on the idea that I need to flesh out that really determines how much I do in terms of effects.
All right. Well, that's cool. I think your effects are the most noticeable trait of your style, to be honest, along with the storytelling.
I would say so too.
It's a very nice technical choice. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
That almost brings us to the end of our questions. One last one. Any difficulties you've encountered, and how have you overcome them? Like technical aspects with maybe Vegas, or we know that you quit Vegas to go to After Effects because it was holding you back. But anything else like that?
Okay, difficulties. I actually have a few, although some of them are on my own accord, no one else is responsible. Difficulties starting out were definitely with Vegas, as it's a very unreliable program, which anybody who's used it knows it crashes often, so you always got this sort of anxiety that you'll be in the middle of a project and it'll crash on you, so you get into the habit of saving a lot. But
Right.
at that, it was a very unstable program to work with. So that was a technical difficulty. It kind of limited my ability to really expand on the content I create, because after so many, effects or layers or what have you, it becomes very unstable and touch and go in terms of how long you can go before it crashes again. So with Vegas, that was probably the biggest feat to overcome, was just simply working around its instability. Other difficulties I've had would be, like, I've got a project sitting in my projects folder for Sony Vegas that I started, I believe, back in April of 2014. And anybody who's seen the teasers that I put up and trailers and what have you, it was for the song Critical Acclaim by Avenged Sevenfold. Very heavy, it's not really heavy metal, but it's very heavy rock. And I wanted to repurpose scenes from the show for it and really make this very dark and demented PMV that really just sends a message out about like how messed up the world is today, both tying it into like our world that we live in and the world in the show. But I found that this is more difficulty on my end, is that it's really hard after 2 minutes into a song to really repurpose these scenes, because you don't have access to much.
Yeah,
Once you've used season finales, season openers, middle episodes with surprising scenes in them, and you really work them in and you figure out where they go, and then you run out of ideas and you've got 3.5 minutes more of editing to do, and you just don't know where to go from there. And so I'd say that's one of my biggest difficulties, is tailored specifically to that project, but kind of more in general, is like lack of knowing where to take a project. Because I've got the idea in my head of how I want it to be done, and then, like I said earlier, MLP could become a dried up resource for me, to the point where I can't use it anymore to express what I want to do. And with something like that, it's sort of showing its science, because I've pushed the boundaries of how much I can manipulate the content from the show and reshape it into what I want it to be and what I want it to represent. And that's been one of the hardest hurdles to overcome in terms of like difficulties editing and whatnot.
I see. Well, I'm glad that you've taken the time to come to this interview with us. And is there any way, well, we know that you can be accessed via YouTube, right? People can send you messages on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other way that you'd like people to get in contact with you if they have any more questions or want to chat?
They could add me on Skype under it's the same name as my channel and whatnot, just rainbowdashzx. It should be pretty easy for anybody. They can add me on Skype, or they can email me at the same email, although not a lot of people use email nowadays, or message me directly on YouTube. I get notifications on all three places, so I'll know as soon as you contact me.
Well, that's
So yeah, pretty much YouTube, Skype, and email.
all right. It doesn't seem like we have any questions in the chat, so with that, we will be logging off. Oh, wait, we have one question from Tarheel20. Advice for any future video editors or just content creators in general? What advice would you give?
What a wonderful question. Oh, were you done? Or were you not done
No,
yet?
that was it,
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, okay. Just making sure. I didn't want to cut you off there, but
No, go ahead.
The words left your mouth and they entered my head, and I was off thinking immediately. Advice for future editors. Thank you so much for asking that question, because I have wanted to answer this for so long. Now, this might sound a little harsh, because I'm giving a really down-to-earth answer, very realistic, this is the way of life answer. If you want to be a content creator, you cannot go to your tools that you're going to use, whether you have the money for Vegas Pro or Adobe, or maybe you want to use the software on your computer, iMovie for Apple or Windows Movie Maker for Windows. It doesn't matter what tools you have access to, because in the end, what you can create and what you want to do is dependent on you. It's your determination of how much effort you want to put into this. It's your ideas. If you can think of an idea and you want to do it, you have to put forth the effort to do it and make it happen. And so you're responsible for achieving anything. It's not luck. I have 6,000 subscribers, but I've been doing this for 3.5 years now, and I've watched my rate go up at a linear rate because I've been following. I can follow the rate at which I grow, and it's been linear because, or linear. Sorry to anybody who's getting annoyed by that. It's been linear because I've been improving because I've been pushing myself and I've been just trying to do better, and that's what you have to do. Sure, like you heard me in the interview, I've been saying that I was limited by Sony Vegas Pro and what I can do, but that's after using the program for 8 or 9 years that I finally hit the ceiling for like its capabilities. If you're starting out, you try your best and you do what you want to do, and you have to have determination, inspiration, and motivation to get anything done. You can't throw your arms up and say you can't do it, because you can do it if you try. And if you're not willing to try, you're really not willing to create, and so you shouldn't even be a creator at that point.
Well, that's some good advice, and I think everybody can take from that, whether you're creating PMVs or music or whatever you do.
Right. It's really anything in life.
Yep. Alas, we've reached the end of our interview session. I'm so sorry we have to leave, but it's been about 30 minutes. rainbowdashzx, you've been an excellent guest. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, it's definitely my pleasure. I've been so looking forward to this.
All right. Well, this has been a Spotlight interview with rainbowdashzx. I'm your host, Skydash, and owner of pmvtoday.com. Please check us out when you can. Thank you, and good night.
Good night.